Fred here, welcome back to the Gear Obsession channel. I have another knife review for you, and it is the Buck Vantage. Now, before we get started, I'd like to go over just some short things about Buck and Buck knives. Buck has been around since 1902, and I've always enjoyed collecting Buck knives as my part of my knife collection. I mean, what is a knife collection without a Buck knife? And when most people hear Buck knife, they think this particular Buck folder, which is the 110. And this is what revolutionized folding knives back in 1964. And Buck and knife, you know, when you say, hey, I'm going to get my Buck, you know you're talking about a knife, and this is what most people envision. The 110. It is a awesome knife, but that's not what this video is about. Last week I went to Dick's Sporting Goods, and they had a knife that they didn't have any more in the back. They only had the one that was in the display, and I hate buying display, so you know, after playing with it and I was very impressed, I left. Because I thought maybe I'll go back in a week and they would have another one, maybe came in a shipment. Well, anyway, this past weekend I went back and they didn't. So I'm like, you want to give me a deal on the one that you have in the display cabinet, which happened to still be there, which was pretty neat. And he said, well, I'll give you 5% off. And I'm like, fine, because I really like the knife. And that knife is, here's what was in the display cabinet. This was the actual price right in there. He gave it to me and gave it 5% off. And that is the Vantage Select Large Folder. And here it is. Now if you notice, it's a very clean looking knife. And that's one of the things that impressed me. It's a very clean looking knife. It is glass reinforced nylon. Let me make sure. Yep. I want to make sure that I get this right. It weighs 3.7 ounces and the blade is 3¼ inches long. There's your blade. It's a very impressive knife. And I'll tell you, I can't find too many imperfections in this knife. I feel that the only thing is here on the base. There's a little bit of machining that you might notice. I'll tell you what, I'm sorry, I'm going to shake the camera here a little bit. There we go. But you can see a little bit of machining right there. That's really the only imperfection that I could find. Now what impressed me about this knife is just how smooth it is. It's just, I'm going to back up a little bit. And of course I get camera fright, but I mean it pops right out. And even with the flipper, it's just super fast. And I'll tell you, if this thing had a hole like a Spyderco, I could definitely get my finger in there good. But it has this oval, which means that you have to get your finger in there just a little bit deeper, you know, and then you could go ahead and deploy it very easily. But if it were a hole, something that could fit my fat finger, it would be right out there. But again, you have the flipper right here. That'll just pop it out, and then that flipper ends up on this end, which is something else to help your hand from sliding when jabbing. There is no jimping, but you know, it wouldn't have hurt if there was a little bit of a ramp or some jimping here on the top to help your hand slide. Really, all you have is this and a good grip, but in most cases that should be good enough. The blade steel is 428C. Now, in most cases, you know, that's something that could be on the Rockwell scale of hardness as low as 55. And the scale for 428C is from 55 to 58. And 55 is like barely good for blade steel. But Buck is known for their extraordinary heat treatment. So it's on the top end of the 428C. So it's at 58 Rockwell hardness, which is very good. It's very good. It's I would say medium quality steel there. It's pretty good, especially for 428C, which is on the top end, very good. So for the price range, it's a good steal. By the way, the price range, if you hadn't already noticed, is $29.99. It's listed on the website as $39, but you'll find it at Dick's definitely for $29, and you'll probably find it even cheaper at some of the other online outlets out there. Now let's take a look at this clip. Let me fold this in before I cut myself. The clip is very strong, better than that knife that I reviewed last week. Pretty good clip. It's a little short, but if you notice, it's bent in. It's a very strong. It's a very strong clip. You know, you don't have a long strip coming down where it's like flat and it gives it an opportunity to bend and warp. It's bent in, and then it comes out a little bit to help you, you know, sort of get your pants or your pocket in there. So it goes in, and it goes all the way up, so it rides very low in your pocket. It's almost totally concealed. Now you can take these two screws out and reverse it for left-handed carry, but you can't mount it on the other side. So it is always tip up, left or right side, you're choosing, and it is very concealable. It's a very clean design. I really like it. Now I'm going to get a little picky. I'm not thrilled about the way that Buck did their grind on this blade. Now you can see how it's a hollow ground. It starts very high up on the blade. So what this did was, when you get down to about 2/3 down or 1/3 up, however you want to see your cup of water there, it's very thin. This is a very thin blade here on the bottom, on the belly here. Very thin. Now, as far as how well that holds up, if anybody has one of these, please feel free to comment below. I'm very curious. I know I wouldn't want to use this to, let's say, put it to a slotted screw and use it as a screwdriver, because I know it'll tear this blade up. It's very thin. However, with every downside there's an upside, I guess, and that is this probably would make a outstanding slicer if you're slicing. But very clean looking, very well made, and just incredibly smooth. I'll tell you, as soon as I was at the store, and I just went ahead and popped it out, and my wife, who she did the same thing, and it came right, she goes, wow, I really like this knife. So I mean, right there, both of us were very impressed. By the way, lockup is solid up and down, side to side, so there's not much not to like, I don't think. By the way, it does have stainless steel liners. It is a liner lock, and that liner is a lot thicker than some of the cheaper Bucks. Speaking of cheaper Bucks, I shouldn't be talking to you behind my back. Like, here's a Bantam, and you see the blade, how off-center it is. Bucks do have a reputation, especially their lower end blades, to have a problem with centering, and the Vantage did not have a problem with blade centering. It was perfectly centered. It's very good. What I like to do now is take the Buck Vantage and do a cut test. It feels pretty sharp, and it is very sharp. So there we have it. Very sharp knife out of the display cabinet. I think it's a good knife. If anybody else has one of these, please feel free to comment below. I'm curious how or what you think of it. Again, thank you very much, and have a great evening or day or morning or whatever you're watching this video. And don't forget to support the Second Amendment. You have the Second Amendment Foundation, your NRA, and your local second pro rights groups. Please feel free and generous toward the police.